Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Herbalism of the Soul podcast. This episode is called Love Your Mother, and I'm infusing this podcast with the medicine of St. John's wort and of bleeding heart. And these are to represent the two different aspects of motherhood, which is being a mother. That's more of the masculine aspect, the giving of motherhood, and having a mother, receiving a mother, which all of us have. Not all of us are mothers, but all of us have mothers. And I'm going to start with this first component, which is honestly less charged for most people. Being a mother, it is one of the greatest challenges and one of the greatest gifts. It's actually where I spend most of my time. I only spend a few hours a week working on this business, and I spend the rest of my time in motherhood. I'm a mother of 3 young children. I have a 6-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 4-month-old baby. And this has been one of the most transformative experiences of my life in terms of understanding myself, growing as a human soul on this planet, and also in healing my relationship with my own mother. So I'm going to talk about this aspect of motherhood first. And when we become mothers, we are endowed with the love of God for our children. We are gifted with that perspective, the complete adoration, the complete desire for union with our children. It's that feeling where you just want to, like people say this a lot, you just want to eat up a baby or inhale a baby. There's this complete love that comes whenever a child is born. And this is with every child. Even if the mother is somehow closed off to this, that energy is still brought in, and the more we open to it, the more that we can receive it. And so this window, this first experience of motherhood, alludes to essentially our job in motherhood, which is to essentially be God for our children. I'll say that no mother has ever done this perfectly, including myself. And not no mother. There are some souls who come into this world and who are in a perfected state. But most of us here are not in a perfected state, and we're all working on getting towards that perfected state of total integration with our soul and our body, total union with the divine, God, the universe, whatever term you like to use. And so this is one of the greatest challenges, because in the first year or two of motherhood, that love is very present. It's all encompassing. And then you're tested in infancy. You're certainly tested, but the tests start to change. Your child starts to trigger within you where you're lacking, and that can really even start in infancy. We must have the perspective that everything our child does is for our spiritual evolution. It's for us to become more like God. So we have to know the qualities of God, which are, God is not emotional. God doesn't have negative emotions. God is never angry. God never punishes. It's an always giving force. So we have to be in this always giving. Motherhood it's a constant giving. And that definitely does not mean just giving kids whatever they want all the time. It's knowing when to give a boundary and when to, give them nourishment. It's knowing the difference, being able to tap in the middle of a test, in the middle of your biggest trigger, to know what your child needs. And I want to bring in the medicine of St. John's wort here, because St. John's wort is this incredible plant who can help us in transformative giving when we don't feel like it anymore, giving when we're triggered, giving when it's the middle of the night and all the kids are sick and you're sick too, and you have to take care of them. Giving when it's especially hard, and giving when we're in that state of darkness is actually the most transformative experience that we can have. It's one of the biggest times to be spiritual. So when I was creating this podcast, looking at the medicine, the energy of St. John's Wort, I both saw St. John's Wort as this old, joyful, patient, loving man, as well as a young boy drawing a picture of a sun. And the personification of plants really just makes them relatable to us. And the plants are indeed spirits, so they have, valances that we will see them through our third eye, through our clairvoyance, through our imagination. Those are all the same thing. And so when we are in those moments where we're intensely triggered, St. John's Wort is one of the best medicines that we can connect to, because it will give us that light, that brightness, to draw in the wisdom of what to do in that moment, of what to see. Sometimes we even need to see what the next step is. And when we can see that next step, then we can start to move in that direction. And St. John's Wort is a very masculine plant, and I'm talking about the masculine aspect of mothering. I know, mothering may often be considered a feminine aspect because it's the mother, it's the female form, but it is a giving force. It's a constantly giving force. And I'm talking about just masculine energy. It's not, I'm not talking about a male in particular. So St. John's Wort has a high masculine volume. It wants to give. It gives and gives and gives. It blooms with the sun. So that's kind of one of the things we can pay attention to with different plants, whether they're more of a masculine or more of a feminine plant. More feminine plants don't bloom in such abundance. They might bloom in the shade or in the forest because that's more of the feminine aspect. The sun is more of the masculine aspect. It's, the sun and moon. And the plants will all reflect that. That is one of the reasons that I chose this plant for the giving of motherhood. So that's our role as moms, is to learn how to become like God. That's the idea of all of life, is really how can we become more like the Creator? And the Creator is an endlessly giving force, and we are also, the feminine aspect of the Creator. We're the vessel. And so that brings me into having a mother. This is honestly a much more charged area of the topic of motherhood. And I want to address this, how most people see in the spiritual world having a mother. So there is this general consensus that we choose our parents and we come in to this world, and then we receive our programming the first it's really 12 years, 12 to 13 years of life. We receive our programming, and then we go out into the world and we basically have to undo everything that was programmed, or, that's kind of the narrative. And it's a very victim-based narrative, even within a spiritual community that is trying to revoke victimhood, trying to, free ourselves of that. And this aspect, so this is all true to some extent, but it's missing this important piece that each of our souls came to this world with darkness. We didn't come into a body in our godlike state. Very few people do. Most of us don't come into the world as God, as their completely perfected soul. We have a very specific set of spiritual baggage, pictures, energy, foreign energy, however you want to call it. In Kabbalah, it's called tikkun, that we come to release so that we can become one with the Creator. And our parents, our mother and our father, have the absolute perfect energy for us to awaken and see what all of that baggage is. And then, yes, and then we do have to spend, our adulthood, our teenage life to adulthood and beyond, working through and overcoming that. It doesn't have to take years and years. It could take 1 year, it could take 10 years, it could take 20, 100,000 lifetimes. There isn't a rule for how long this will take. It's up to us. And one of the most important things, though, so we need to realize that this is the truth, that we didn't come into this world perfect. This can be a very challenging truth, especially if we had a very difficult childhood. Sometimes souls who have extremely difficult childhoods are actually very high souls, who are very evolved and can actually move through their process quickly and have the ability, came in to elevate their parents' souls. So, but in the end, none of us came to the world in a perfect state. So we need to acknowledge this. We need to take responsibility for this. And we also have to love our parents. We have to love our mother. And if we don't, so the mother is like the seed level of who we are. That can create chaos through our whole life. The more we blame, the more we go into stories, the more we speak ill of our mother. All of that is going to have negative consequence in our relationship, in our finances, and our children. It's all going to have a consequence. And this is where I want to bring in the energy, the medicine of bleeding heart, which is the more feminine aspect of this podcast, the feminine plant aspect, feminine medicine. Bleeding heart can help us to release those layers and come into love and union with our mothers, with our parents, with anyone, really, honestly. Maybe you didn't have a challenging relationship with your mother. Maybe it was with your father. Maybe it was with someone else. Pretty much everyone has to have a challenging relationship with someone in their life, because otherwise we're not going to evolve. We're never going to know, where we need to grow, where we have more room to connect with our souls. So bleeding heart allows us to see through all of the garbage and come into union with our mothers. I'm going to recommend a way to approach using this medicine in a healing with your mother, which is, or whoever, if it's not your mom, if it's someone else who you have a challenging relationship with, or even if you just want to improve your relationship with your mother, to invite this medicine in and to witness, as you invite this medicine into your space, into your aura, into your body, imagine a connection, a really healing connection. What would it feel like to be in union, to be in a loving relationship, a whole, complete relationship with your mother? And you can start to, as you imagine this, the layers start to release off. And I also recommend working with this plant, over a week or months even, depending on where you're at in that relationship. I'm also going to recommend or bring in another medicine here, Trillium. If it's been toxic and negative for a very long time, and it's just kind of a ping pong back and forth, and you basically feel like you need to start over, Trillium is an incredible partner to Bleeding Heart in those sorts of situations to essentially start the relationship over again, to bring it all down to ground zero, to reset, to restart. And I also urge you, if there's a conversation, a healing conversation, has to be coming from a place where you want everything to be good. You're not going in to blame or to punish or to say what you wish had happened or to express all of your anger onto someone. It has to be coming from a really pure place. Have that conversation. Go into that. And that can transform so much. Our words are vessels. We can't just do the energy work. We can't just do the internal work. It has to come out into the world. That's why we have a physical form. That's also something about the plants. The plants aren't here necessarily just to be our friends, just to be our everything. The plants are here to support us in our human world, in our human relationships. They aren't here to take the place of that. We can't fully evolve to the level that we would all like to be in pure bliss, total ecstatic union with God without other humans. They're not here for us to escape the world. They're here to help us integrate into the world, to feel that we are really meant to be here, that we are on our paths, that we are doing our spiritual work. And yeah, they're not here for us to escape, to just want to be with our plants and no one else. So the relationships that we have with people who challenge us, a lot of the times this comes in as a mother, because that makes it essentially unavoidable for you to do your spiritual work. Sometimes I've seen this many times actually. People may want to avoid motherhood. It's not for them. They don't want to do it. Nope. And the other thing that I often see that partners with this is a childhood that was very challenging because of the mother. And there's a subconscious resistance to not wanting to see the same qualities that were in our mother come out in us. Because as mothers, we can admit, we can know, we see they do. And it's not just the programming. We can't just blame it on the programming. We have to acknowledge and own that we were already like that. We chose that mother to awaken that darkness within us. And our mothers were tested. Every mother is tested a lot and back to back to back. And, sometimes 20 times a day just by one child or 50 times by one child. And even if our mom passed one test, she helped us evolve spiritually. Even if she didn't scream one time when she wanted to, or when that urge came up, if she resisted and decided to give us love instead, she elevated our soul. And that is essentially our job as mothers then. It's a cycle, right? Is to pass our tests. In order to pass our tests, we have to, in every moment that we are challenged by some external circumstance or by a thought that comes within, to act like God. That's essentially it. And St. John's Wort can help us tremendously In our tests as mothers, especially as mothers of young children, this plant brings in so much play, so much enthusiasm, so much song, so much rhythm. And bleeding heart is just this beautiful, the way I see this plant whenever I look through my mind's eye is like these flapping, beautiful angel butterfly wings that want to envelop you, that want to show you just how loved you always were, even if your mother was pretty much blocked off to that love 95, 99, however much percent of the time, that was always still there. And I think this can be one of the most challenging messages to digest, but it is also has the greatest power to recognize that we came to this world in an imperfect state. We chose our parents because of our specific imperfections. And when we love those who gave us life, our mother and our father, that purifies like the whole stream, the whole timeline, all the different timelines we've been on. And it allows us to receive so much more in our relationships and our partnership with our children and our finances and our careers and our friendships. It's really important every time you think a negative thought, start that battle going in your mind with someone who challenges you, whether that's your mom or someone else. Connect with bleeding heart. If you can't remember to connect with bleeding heart or any plant in particular, just connect with God. That's something you can always rely on. The plants are just messengers. They're just vessels for different aspects that our Creator has. And the same with if you're going to say something. Maybe this is a test that can come up. Someone comes to you and they start complaining about their mother. Do not join them. Find something positive. Find something positive about their mother. Find something positive about your mother. Connect with bleeding heart. That's a test. When we say words that destruct or harm others, we are destroying and harming ourselves, and the ripple effect goes out. So stop yourself. Connect with bleeding heart. If you can't remember which plant to connect with God. That's something you can always rely on. And that's all. That's all I want to share with you in this week's episode. I also want to mention, as I'm beginning this podcast, I'm finding my rhythm. You can probably hear my voice is a little bit different today. And I'm finding the rhythm presently of 3 podcasts a month. Being in a feminine vessel, being a woman, a 3-week per month cycle of a podcast feels much more natural to me than four podcasts a month. I was noticing with four podcasts a month, I was starting to feel depleted, or with the idea of it, that was already starting to be depleting. It's important for us all to take a window, a break, a rest, and when we do that, we allow others to do that for themselves too. So I hope that you can also find those windows of rest in your life, those weeks where you can sit back and be in more of a reflective space. And I wish you all a lovely week. And thank you so much for listening.